Welcome to the NFL Coast to Coast podcast brought to you by thelines.com. Coming to you from the West Coast, Josh Lander, joined by Nate Weitzer. He's out there on the East Coast, and we are looking at NFL Week 4 and these player props that we have for you guys. A little struggle last week for me anyway. Nate went 2-2. I went 1-2. Still looking to get back into the win column here, but feeling pretty good about these picks, Nate. I think there is some value. We finally have data through 3 weeks that I think will help us. So we'll be looking at a few player props, maybe some touchdowns. Definitely want to make sure to like that video. Go ahead and subscribe to the page as well so you don't miss any of the NFL action that we're bringing you here on the Lines YouTube channel. Nate, let's go ahead and run right into your first play here for Week 4.
Yeah, I love this look. The MVP at the moment, Josh Allen, on Sunday Night Football at Baltimore. And the number's 230 at DraftKings. I've seen it as low as 227, though, for his passing yardage. And it's actually down from opening at 232. I don't know what would be driving this down other than the league-wide trend of lower passing yardage here. But, I mean, the Ravens are allowing a league-high 292. So it's like you're asking Josh Allen to approach that average, unless you're saying the Bills defense is so good that they're going to just shut down Lamar Jackson at home. And this game script is going to be like Bills run away with it and they just run the ball. Because that's actually the only way Josh Allen goes under this number, pretty much. Like I went through all his games, even like before Joe Brady made the switch over. And basically there's these home blowouts or weird turnover games where like his D gets a pick 6, as we just saw in week 2, right at Miami. It usually happens at home is what I'm saying here, but on the road, actually hit 230 plus in 6 straight and averaged 282 prior to that Miami game, where, as we know, it was 3 turnovers, game was over. Allen had to do nothing. I absolutely trust the Ravens offense here. They're number 1 in yards per play. They play fast, 7th in pace, and they're 2nd in pace when they're at home since the start of last season. So Lamar's going to be getting it and going, explosive plays. And I absolutely do not trust the Ravens secondary, to be clear here. Like, you can't run on this team straight up, right? I mean, people don't even try. They're the biggest pass funnel so far this season. So that's why they're giving up so much yardage. It's not necessarily that they're terrible back there in terms of personnel or coaching, but it's just the fact that opposing teams are like, all right, I mean, you're going to stack the box. Like you have great linemen. Like we know what we got to do. So I think, either way, Josh Allen, I mean, he's going to will his team to be in this game. So if that's what he has to do to get yards, that's what I expect him to do. You can tack on 36 rushing yards for him. But, I mean, that's about where he's at in terms of average. So I think you just take the passing here and expect this to be a relatively high-scoring game.
I think that's fair. I think the other thing working in your favor as much as anything for Josh Allen's passing yards is the dink and dunk, which Joe Brady has shown that he will do. It's the game script that I was calling for last game, because the Jags, who are not even as good as the Ravens are at stopping the run, were way better at it. They lost some of the ranking there in their defensive rush EPA after the Bills built that early lead, and all they had to do was run in the second half. And Josh Allen alone got like 40 plus yards as well to diminish that rush EPA for the Jags. But they were top 10 coming into last week, and we saw Brady happy to throw 3-yard crossing routes to Coleman and Shakir and the occasional deeper shot, obviously, to keep him honest. But that bodes pretty well, because that's been working for a lot of yak, especially. So I think attempts will be there for you to get this number, and the rushing as well. You're going to see probably a lot of man once again from the Ravens. I was just double checking real quick. They run a pretty balanced attack, about half rush, half man, half zone. But when they are in man, like we saw what Josh Allen did to that last week. So I completely agree that with all this stuff supporting him, my first play for us here in week 4 is going to be Marv Harrison. Going to go ahead and take the rookie phenom. Has been somewhat boomer bust, but really everything is a little bit skewed from a week 1 that still has us all questioning what happened. I think Kyler Murray's probably still questioning what happened, and then broke out in week 2. Week 3, though, the target. So I'm going with the yards here for Marv, to be clear, over 67.5 receiving yards. And the reason that I'm rocking with Marv on the yards more than anything is, first of all, the targets were there. The receptions, though, is at 5.5. he obviously does not need 6 receptions to get 70 yards with a nearly 20 yards per catch average on the season, which is good for tops in the league. A couple other things for him, like let's start with Washington, I guess. Washington's dead last in drop back EPA. They're second to last in the success rate when other teams are passing on them. And after the other thing here, I just wanted to read the stats real quick of the receiver stats against them so far. For the Bucks torched them. I mean, Chris Godwin and Rachaad White both had 75 plus. Mike Evans had 61 to tack on there. Then you got Malik Neighbors going at him. We all know what he did now, maybe the best rookie wide receiver, at least through 3 games. That's the case. And then Jamar Chase as well, obviously had his breakout game of the season last week. So the number one wide receiver on teams who are deep threats, who have high ADOTs, are doing fairly well against this Washington team who went from having like 5 all-pro defensive linemen on their team like 2 or so years ago to just having no pass rush at this point. Quarterbacks are able to just take their time and throw those deeper balls, which is what you want from Marv. I mean, he's got 8 deep shots already, which is number 1 in the league as well. So you know he's getting a lot of stuff over 20 plus, and that's going to be good enough. His long reception still is, I believe, a hair below 20 and a half on most spots too. So I think that's a good look for him as well, considering that's around his A dot. It's actually up about 23 and a half now, so it moved in the right direction. But like I said, with that high of an A dot, without the need for the too many receptions to get this number, I prefer the yards. I think 100 plus is a good play if you want to sprinkle on that. The 5.5 receptions I'm fine with because I think the targets will remain at about 8 or higher. Trey McBride is still in concussion protocol, doesn't have any props up right now either himself. And Marv's still sitting at 67.5. If Trey McBride gets ruled out, that's got to be bumped up at least to like 75 or so.
Yeah, like keeping it real simple here. I mean, a true alpha receiver against a team with 0 alpha cornerbacks and 0 pass defense really to speak of. But now they have apparently a rookie quarterback coming into his own. So, I mean, the game flow should definitely be positive here. I mean, it's got a 50-point total out in Arizona. Yeah, Jaden Daniels, I mean, might not get the win here, might not be as efficient, but he should force Kyler to keep throwing. And I mean, we saw actually when they kicked the crap out of the Rams, they didn't even need the second half to get Marvin over here because, yeah, like you said, he's good for some explosive plays. But speaking of the Rams getting stomped, that is what I hope to see here in week 4 as they go to the Bears. Got some Bears -2.5 going when that was still up, and just looking for some regression, including Kyren Williams to go under 75.5 rushing yards. I think you look at weeks 1 and 2 when this Rams offensive line with the same personnel, and they've claimed that they've gelled now, but really I just don't think they're very good. And then weeks 1 and 2 against not good rush defenses, in my opinion, 2.5 yards per carry for Kyren, 37.5 per game. Those are also on the road. And now we're back on the road here at Soldier Field against a Bears defense that I know has struggled against the run this year, but was number 1 just last year. Not a huge change in personnel. And I'm trying to get a little bit ahead of the curve here. Like, I mean, they know they've struggled. The reason they lost the game is because they let JT go for 100 plus. Anthony Richardson couldn't do anything. They should know that their cornerbacks have this on lock, right? I mean, you have Tutu Atwell and Demarcus Robinson, and Matt Stafford with very little time to throw, just going to look for those quick out routes, whatever he can do. Look, they don't need to give the corners any help. Like, they can just lock that down on the outside and then stack the box, because Kyren Williams has been this offense. He's the reason all of a sudden they were able to come back against the 49ers. And I mean, he still he gets like 69, right, in terms of rushing in that game. Right. Or 69 of it, was on the right side. Nice. I know you always like to bring that up. Against on the right side where they have 2 competent offensive linemen. So another thing, I think the Bears, even though I don't really trust Matt Eberflus, and that's what makes them the most nervous about this entire betting situation, I think they can understand that, like, that's where they have to run. Like, these guys on the left, they have a rookie center and a 6th round left guard. Like, they have nothing to scare us on the left. So, like, stack the box in this very particular place. Try to take Kyren away. Our corners have this, and I think I expect this Bears defense to dominate. Like, I put out a bet on Tally site for the lines that Rams team total under 20. Don't expect them to get there. I just expect them to come crashing back to earth, which we saw in Arizona. Not a defense you really expect, but I mean, they just absolutely waxed this Rams offense when they knew what was coming, and with the personnel that the Rams have, which is not much.
No, it's not much, and they were the beneficiaries of a number of short fields because of turnovers, as we know as well. So a couple turnovers at the end, as you like to say, SF just threw up all over themselves when they had that game in lock. So that, yeah, there's not much to like. I mean, you'd think we would just go start fading these Rams receivers. Nobody has the receiving yards prop above 40. It's Demarcus Robinson. I don't know. I don't know if I have the stones to go under 29 and a half receiving yards for Kobe Parkinson, for instance, when he's going to have like 5 to 6 targets, even if they are like 5 yards down the field. Like, they're so low for a reason. So yeah, they're gonna have no choice but to run. You have to know that as the Bears. This might be the poo-poo game of the week if the game script goes as you're calling for, without question. But you know what that does open the door for? Segue to Kyren Williams over 15 and a half receiving yards, which is a much lower number than 75 and a half. To your point here entirely. So I'm not going to repeat all of the stats. I'll just say, like, Bears so much better at just obviously tops in the league right now, third actually in drop back EPA. So their ability to limit the pass is so great. You made all the points. The pass rush is tops. The really impressive part about having the 5th highest pressure percentage for them is that they blitz the 4th least in the league. So their blitz rate is 4th lowest, yet their pressure rate is 5th highest. So they're getting pressure with 4, maybe 5 guys, and that really does open them up for the linebackers to be able to play in coverage, or to your point, be able to Hawkeye the run. I do think, however, that you're still going to have Kyren Williams with the ability to get some receiving yards, because the receptions should be there for him as well. So I did take the over 15 and a half receiving yards, like I said, instead of 2.5 receptions, but I wouldn't fault anybody for the receptions, because I think we're looking at another sort of 5 target game for Kyren in this one. And there's been running backs having success receiving against the Bears this season, in large part because they don't have a choice, right? They really need to get the ball out quick. Matt Stafford. So last week, Jonathan Taylor only had 2 targets. One of them went for the 25 yards, so he went over this number. And 2 of 3 running backs have gone over this number. But the other thing is Anthony Richardson was a rushing quarterback. So rather than toss it to his running back frequently, he was running out of the pocket, as we saw, throwing some really nasty throws, but or running. So that's not going to be the case for obviously 37-year-old Matt Stafford. That's not going to be his game. That means there's going to have to be a lot shorter passes no matter what. And yeah, the Bears linebackers, like I said, might be a little bit freer to hang with Kyren, but I think he breaks at least one of these off for roughly 10 yards or so. And so I'm really good with him getting 3 receptions for 5 yards a pop, or 2 for 8 yards a pop. I think we're going to get there.
Yeah, I mean, there's a reason I could have gone under 95 and a half scrimmage yards. There's a reason I left the passing out of there, because that's when I think you have a good scheme and you have good personnel to stuff the run, but he still gets out the back door, right, with a couple screens. And that is the concern, is that Sean McVay is such a superior coach to Eberflus that he's going to dial some things up to get his best player the ball, his only good player, you could say right now, only good skill player. So I think it's worth a sprinkle here. I will just say 4 of the next 5 of the Rams after this at home, including some against the poo-poo Dolphins. So easier days to come. And we did see them basically punt that game in Arizona. So if it starts to go south, I don't know if the Bears have the explosive offense to make it go south that quickly. But like, I like this from a betting perspective, just saying the Bears defense should win the day. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like Carolina Christmas here for all their skill players, with Andy Dalton stepping in. And I kept going back and forth. Do I want Chuba? Do I want Diontae Johnson? I'm going to stick with Diontae Johnson. Over 5.5 receptions is plus money. I just think I love the way this game script should unfold after Cincy just lost 38-33 with no punts, I believe, the entire game. So I mean, their defense is just dreadful. But you talk about getting ahead of the curve, like, they need help stopping the run. Rankins and Hill still not practicing. Trey Hendrickson is sick. They are, just absolutely hung out to dry right there with the personnel in the front 7. And Chuba just gashed the Raiders. Actually had the highest grade of any running back last week. But I think that they're going to try to, make Dalton beat them a little bit. I think it's still, you got to prove it a little bit. But, I mean, it's just a target share thing with Diontae Johnson, right? I mean, he was still getting 6 targets both games with Bryce Young, just throwing up on himself, as you said. 14 targets in the first game with Dalton. He's able to catch 8 of those. It's a 38.3% target share in that first game with Dalton. And now Adam Thielen is hurt. Adam Thielen, his go-to guy, the vet to vet, right? So now he was just looking at Diontae constantly in a positive game script, in a ridiculously positive game script for the Carolina Panthers. Like, are they ever going to be up by 3 touchdowns the rest of the year? I mean, certainly not against a desperate 0-3 Bengals team that's going to be shredding their defense, forcing them to continue to throw. So, I mean, Dalton dropping back. His other options, assuming Thielen's not able to go, are first or second year guys, right? Mingo, Leggett, Tremble. They're just not guys he's going to trust. I do kind of respect the Bengals' individual corners, but like their scheme has not been very good. Lou Anarumo is behind the 8 ball this year. I think, now the Panthers with Dave Canales have a good passing scheme at least, and now they have a quarterback that can actually execute it. So give me their top receiver in this matchup.
Yeah, I don't even think you mentioned, the most damning thing for Bryce Young over the first couple of weeks was that his offensive line was like the second best offensive line in the league as far as giving him time to pass. Last year the excuses could be made, and they were made by some people, and it's just not the case anymore. So I don't think it's that big of a surprise anyway that there was that stark of a difference between them, between the performances, but Andy in week 3. So yeah, I would probably go with the receiving as well in this matchup, to your point. So I'm with it. I'm going to basically fade what has been a really good rush defense in the Chargers and take Carson Steele as the Chiefs take on the Chargers here. And I do think the over 43.5 rushing yards is a great play as well. I like him on a touchdown. I think both those are good plays for Carson Steele. We'll be betting on him with both those here actually shortly. But the thing with Carson Steele, so I mean, 40. I don't know why it's still at 43.5. I guess because the Chargers have such a good rush defense on paper right now through 3 games. The 3 teams that they've played though were the Steelers 25th in rush EPA, Panthers 28th, and the Raiders are dead last. So 3 of the bottom 7 rushing teams in the league they face in 3 weeks, and they've got the 3rd best defensive rush EPA. That's great. How much do you believe in that versus a Kansas City team that's coming in having to run, choosing to run, being fine with it? I say having to run. That's not quite the case. They can still throw to Rashee Rice and Xavier Worthy as well. But I mean, we still haven't seen Travis Kelce show up yet. So I think they're still going to be fine running the ball, even against a Charger squad who's that good right now, like I said, on paper running it. So I'm going to continue to believe in the game script after last week when he had all those carries. I think the over on carries as well, I still believe at 13.5. I still think that's a good over. They're going to be happy to doing that. And I think they'll be in a positive game script a decent amount as pretty good favorites now. Justin Herbert all banged up, as we know. That's probably not going to lead to very many points for this Chargers squad. So all of that just leads me to go, the touchdown's still plus 135. He got 6 of 7 rushing attempts inside the red zone last week. Couldn't get them in. One of them was a dumb freaking direct snap as well. So maybe they'll throw that one out and just get some bull rush in there, because they do have the 6th best rush EPA and they have really good adjusted line rate on offense. So there's plenty to like about rushing in this one. I think this is the last time we'll see a number as low as this until maybe Kareem Hunt enters the conversation as a legit threat to his share.
Well, Kareem Hunt's active. He's gonna be playing.
He's a legit threat to his snap share after being with the team for 5 days.
Okay, yeah. I mean, that would explain why you're like, I don't know why it's at 43 and not moving up. It's because now they have 3 backs, and I mean, I think the touchdown is the best way to play it because he is still kind of your inside handoff guy. I think there could be a world where you're extremely frustrated watching Kareem Hunt take 6 snaps and vulture your touchdown that you needed Steele to get. But I was the receptions prop not there that you hit last week? Because
nope, there's no receptions. It's 4.5 receiving yards.
4.5 yards. Yeah. So
which I would go over on before I went under. He had 2 targets, to be fair. So either way, like the receptions would still be a good under at 1.5, but 4 and 5 yards on 1 reception is reasonable. I wouldn't be fading that.
Yeah. No, I think it's fair the plus money to take him for a touchdown here because he is the biggest body down there. If they get, a PI down to the 1, somebody tackled down there, like Andy Reid, his gadgets in the red zone haven't been working right now. Maybe they just go like, all right, well, we got the best 3 interior offensive linemen. Let's just hand the ball up the middle, see how that goes. And that should probably get the job done one time. So I like that look.
Cool. Yeah, we'll go with a touchdown for Carson Steele. So make sure you try to get that. You should be able to get it at plus money up. I mean, even if this thing gets knocked around, but I don't think it'll get hit too hard. So that's all the time we have for you, though. Continue to follow along, like that video if you would. Subscribe to the page. Got so much NFL content on the page for you guys, especially about Thursday Night Football and these island games. So check that stuff out on the page. And until we see you next, happy betting.